What is up, guys? We are live here with Pro Play Games and brand new card game here. Well, not too new. It's about a year old. Transformers trading card game by Wizards of the Coast, WotC. Very good company, renowned for Magic the Gathering. You might have heard of it. So, relatively new game. Very popular mechanics. I've actually just given it a chance not too long ago. I want to say a month ago. Us here at PPG have been really just giving it a try, giving it a whirl. We tried it out first with the starter decks, decided the mechanics were pretty cool and exciting, and then we actually transitioned into something, playing with constructed decks, and that ended up being even more exciting. The deck building is a really cool process. There's a lot of variance in the format as far as variant decks. There's a lot of different variations of decks, and there's a pretty healthy meta. There's nothing that's really doesn't have a shot. So right off the bat, we were very intrigued by the game, as well as the prize support. If you guys haven't heard about the organized play, there's over, I think $40,000 between 4 tournaments already announced. 2 of them already passed, Origins and Gen Con, but then they actually have the PAX Invitational happening the first week of December, so still not too late to get in on the action. It's a $20,000 invitational. How do you get your invite? Look at your local game stores. They should be hosting, if they host Magic, they should be hosting a qualifier where only first place, gets that invite to that $20,000 tournament. But if you can't make it to one of those local game stores, don't have Magic around in your area, worry not. There is last chance qualifiers at the PAX event. I believe it's PAX East. I'm not too sure. It's the first week of December in Philadelphia, by the way, which we will be there this weekend. And you can qualify, I believe, a day or two before the tournament. So if you're planning to play Transformers for the first time and you really want to get your invite and you want to play in a really big competitive tournament, then definitely look into that if you want to actually start playing. Because we have passed 2 of the big tournaments already. Coming off of Gen Con, which is why we're doing this deck profile right here. This is what I played at Gen Con. Gen Con was a $10,000 invitational as well. You had to qualify on Thursday or Friday at one of the 4 different tournaments, and once you qualified, you were able to make it into that open, which happened on Saturday, which was only available for the 32 players who had qualified at Gen Con and nowhere else. Now, not only do you qualify for that Saturday tournament, that Saturday $10,000 tournament, but you also qualify for that $20,000 tournament in December, the PAX Invitational. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to explain a lot of things for those of you who are new to Transformers. I know our channel is not very Transformers heavy, so I wanted to explain it for those of you who might want to give it a whirl, might want to give it a chance. I know a lot of people are picking up new card games. A lot of new card games are out. But this one's been around for around a year already. It's had pretty good success. I believe they're in set 3, going into set 4 for PAX. And it's really enjoyable. It really is. And if you like Transformers, which I've never really had an attachment to Transformers, it gives you a little bit more reason to play. So let's start off with Major Shockwave here. Major Shockwave is, now you start the game with X amount of characters. Normally it's anywhere from 2 characters to 5 characters. Depending on the star level, which you can see down here, that really dictates how many characters you can have as your starting lineup. Now, your starting lineup can only contain 25 stars. So, Major Shockwave over here, as you can see, these little 5 denominations, that's 5, 10, and then those 4 right there, that's 14 stars. So that's already more than half of the star allotment on just 1 card. Why would we do that? It's probably because he's very powerful. He has high HP, he has high attack, and he has high defense. So normally you'll see that with the different type of team members that that are accessible to you. Now, there's a lot of them. And they're all different stars. Obviously, the stars will dictate how good they are. So normally the better teams will have 2 to 3 members, as opposed to maybe the more lackluster teams, but maybe they have more power sometimes. We'll kind of get the hang of it as you go along. But Major Shockwave, that's our first one. It has 6 attack, so that orange right here, this means attack. 17 health. We got the in red, obviously, with the heart, and then you got our defense with the shield right there, blue. So Everything that you'll see throughout the deck, if it's blue, it's a defensive card. If it's orange, it's a aggressive card. There's no red symbols. Red symbols just health. So very powerful effect. You get to look at the top card of your deck at any time. That's super powerful all in its own. Being able to do that lets you play with extra information. It's pretty much a leader that lets you cheat while playing. So I really liked it as soon as I saw it because it does let you break the rules, essentially. When you flip to this mode, draw a card, then your opponent chooses a card in their hand and scraps it. Scraps it is just discards it, puts it in the discard pile. So super powerful. Me as a Yu-Gi-Oh player already liked it because it's very card advantage-y. It already has a very cool mechanic that can over time just wear down your opponent. So super cool effect. You can see here on the back that it's 7 and 2, but we're gonna flip to the back so you can see it. Here's the backside. The backside. Now you have a bot mode and then an alt mode. The alt mode is the backside, is the front side, which we just saw, and then this is the bot mode. This is your awakened side for you Dragon Ball players. So once per turn you can flip. So essentially you just flip this guy every turn, and then every time that you flip to the side that it says, hey, when you flip to this mode, you do X, you do X. So on this side, he has a little bit more power, but sacrifices a little bit more defense. So instead of being a 6 attack on the backside, he's now 7. And 3 attack on the other side, he's a 2. So you do get a little bit more offensive capabilities on this side. Now, this side also has the ability to look at the top card of your deck at any time, which is great to have that ability on both sides. That way you're always playing with extra information. And while the top card of your deck is a Decepticon card or a secret action, you may play it as if it were in your hand. So that's very powerful in itself because not only are you playing with extra information now, but you're actually just playing with an extra card in your hand. So essentially both sides can inherently draw you a card because this one can play cards at the top of your deck. The other one, once you flip to it, you'll draw a card and your opponent will discard one. So both sides extremely strong. I don't prefer one side over the other. They're both just stellar cards, and being able to flip every single turn and some cards in the deck that will be able to manipulate your flips is obviously something that can really stack up and be very hindering to your opponent, especially because in this game you start with 3 cards. Obviously you draw a card every turn, but 3 cards is something that can go away very easily. So that's our main guy. This is what the whole deck is revolved around. This guy is our big hitter, and he's the one that we want to keep alive till the end of the game. The other guys can die, mid to early game. That's fine. As long as we have this guy till the end, we should be fine because of his very big health stat. The next Transformer we play on our team is Flame War. So Flame War is another Decepticon, and he's obviously much weaker. Let me put them side by side here so we can get a comparison here. So 3 attack, right? But he's 5 stars. You can see down here he is 5 stars only. So obviously 14 to 5, that's a huge difference. There has to be some concessions somewhere, and the concessions come in the form of the attack, the health, and the defense, sitting at a 3, 10, and 1. So why even play this? Well, we need to have a supporting cast, of course, and this is one of the best supporting cast cards in the entire game for defensive decks, and you'll see on the backside what I'm talking about. So Flame War here, when you flip to his motorcycle mode, his alt mode, each of your characters gets bold 1 until the end of turn. Flip 1 more battle card when attacking. Now in this game, when you attack, you flip 2 battle cards, and when you defend, you flip 2 battle cards. So being able to flip extra of those battle cards is essentially giving you more attack or giving you more defense, depending on which way you're going. Now, when you go to this side, you get more attack essentially because you get to flip more cards. So if you flip more orange, then you get more attack. If you flip blue when attacking, doesn't do anything for you, but if you flip blue on defense, it helps you defend. So we don't use it for this side. We actually don't like being on that side. The first thing that we want to do is we want to get to this side of Flame War because he gives all our characters tough 1. And tough 1 means opposite of bold. Tough gives you one more flip when defending. So that's very important because this is a very defensive deck. This is a defensive deck 100%, and you want to be able to defend as many attacks as possible and just outlast your opponent and really just protect your major Shockwave because he's very powerful. So we don't use him for anything but the tough one. That's why he's there. He's just a supporting cast. Our final team member here is Skydive. Now Skydive is also a 5, so essentially we have a 5, and a 14. That means we have 24. That means we have 24 stars on our team. We do have an extra star. When we side deck, you can side deck one character, so we side deck another character that's actually 6. So you're able to meet that requirement when you side out. But like I said, your deck can be 25 or 24. Anything below 25, it can be fine. And you'll see in the deck you can actually play starter cards as well. So you can play a star card in your main deck. So these are the cards that you start out with. So these are your leaders. So Skydive is our final supporting cast member, and very weak of course as well, just like Flame War, 3 attacks, so he's not really doing too much damage. He's got 8 health, so even lower than Flame War, unfortunately. He still has that 1 defense though, which is great. But he has Tough 2 inherently, so that's great because Tough 2 essentially can read as 2 more defense. That blue icon right there. So if you really wanted to read this card, it essentially has 3 defense instead of just 1 defense because it's flipping 2 more cards. You're playing a blue deck, so essentially on average you'll be flipping at least 1 blue per flip. So super powerful card because it's just a tank. You know, in combination with Flame War gives all our other cards 1 toughness, and Skydive has himself 2 toughness. So inherently it stacks up to 3 tough. So essentially this Skydive actually has 4 defense, which is great. It makes it a huge tank to try to get over. So you just want to live with as many characters as possible, because if you start having less characters than your opponent can start having multiple attacks on you. So that's pretty much our team. I'm gonna leave Shockwave here because that's our spirit animal. That's our number 1 hitter. So let's go over the battle card deck now, and I believe this is 40 to 60 cards that you can play. So inherently you're going to want to play the lower amount of cards because the chances of you seeing the specific card that you want to see at certain times is maximized in that way. Now there is no decking out in this game. Once you deck out, you just reshuffle your discard pile. So it's really cool. That means that allows you to look through your whole deck multiple times a game, which is great because you already know what you're playing, and then you can keep looking through it and make sure that you get the cards or reuse the cards that you really want to keep playing. So that's really, really powerful. Now let's start off with the first action card in our deck. Now the deck is made out of multiple different actions and multiple different upgrades. That's what a deck is consisted of. So every turn in this game you can play 1 action and 1 upgrade. So you want to make sure that you have a pretty even split. That way you're playing 1 and 1 every turn. So every turn you're playing 2 cards. And that's the most efficient that your deck can be. So the first action that we play is called The Bigger They Are. It says one of your characters gets +2 attack. You get a little shield icon, sword icon, which is identical to the sword icon on the attack power of Major Shockwave. So it gets +2 attack until the end of turn. While it's attacking an enemy this turn that has more stars in it, it gains Pierce 4. Now Pierce 4 is essentially just guaranteed damage. So if my Shockwave was attacking for 7, it wouldn't gain +4. It just gains Pierce 4, which means 4 out of those 7 will automatically go through, no matter how much defense my opponent has, no matter how many shields my opponent has, anything like that. It will guaranteed 100% go through. So very powerful card because it does give you more attack. It's one of those attack modifiers. In a defensive deck, you need to make sure that you need to deal with those threats that are attacking you a lot. So this being able to give you extra attack is great. These little blue symbols on the top are very important because your deck, the way that you build your deck needs to maximize on whatever type of deck you are. So we are a mono blue deck. So every card that we play will have a blue icon. That way when we are defending in battle, even when we're attacking, we're flipping blue. Now when we attack and flip blue, it doesn't do anything for us, We just want to make sure that we maximize our deck into defensive mode because we need to survive during our opponent's pushes. So the bigger they are is a very good aggressive card in order to really get us there and get us to killing out our opponent's threats. And the next card we play is 3 Leap into Battle. Leap into Battle is another one of those attack modifying cards. We play this because it solely just gives 3 attack to us until the end of turn. Now, it obviously only gives it to one character, just like the bigger they are, but it's good because against aggressive decks, normally they don't have too much defense. So essentially this transitions into deal 3 damage to your opponent, to any one of your opponent's characters. So that's very powerful because our worst matchups, of course, are the very, very aggressive decks. So we want to make sure that we push that damage through and really knock out the most important characters. Like their version of our major Shockwave, we want to make sure that we hit KOs on them when they're not being defensive. So Leap into Battle is another great card. Also has a blue icon, which is very important. There are other cards like that that don't have, that same blue icon. So you have to go with the ones that normally have that icon in order to maximize, your defense. Next card we play for our actions is Unconventional Flying Object. Not Unidentified Flying Object, but we still call it UFO. It's a very good card because honestly, I don't even know what other deck this card can be played in because it could only be used on spaceships. And we can tell right here on Major Shockwave, boom, on this side, you can see that he is a spaceship on this side. He's not a spaceship on the other side. Now, cars, a lot of the characters can be cars on their alt mode. They can be motorcycles on their alt mode, like you saw with Flame War. They could be planes. So the characteristics are usually important for some specific battle cards. Now, this is a specific battle card that we play that not a lot of other decks can play. It says flip one of your spaceships to bot mode, then flip it back to alt mode. So automatically you're going to get that flip-flop. Now, you can only flip once per turn, but because this is an effect really bypassing the rules, then you could essentially play this and then flip yourself. So what this card essentially reads is, if you're on this side, of course, you make your opponent discard a card and you draw a card, because all it's going to do is going to go back to the backside, which doesn't do anything, and then it's going to flip back to this mode right here. It's alt mode, and that's going to inherently just net you 2 cards because your opponent's going to lose one and you're going to draw them. So it is your action per turn, so sometimes if you want to push damage, it's not the best thing to do, but definitely at those early stages of the game, it's great to get your opponent's resources down and play something like this. That's why we only play 2, but it's a blue symbol as well, so that's one of the best things that we can really ask for. Next, one of our non-blue actions. You're probably asking, what's a white symbol up there? The white symbol just means that you get to flip an additional 2 cards when you flip that on attack or defense. So if I was flipping for turn, or flipping for attack, or flipping for defense, if I were to flip a white, and this only happens once per flip, so if I flip like 3 whites, I don't get to flip like another 6 cards. I flip 1 white, I get to flip another 2 cards. So essentially what would happen is, I defend, right? I flip 2, I flip a white and a blue, I hit the white, right? So I get to flip 2 more cards on the top of my deck. So it essentially just waterfalls into more defense, and it could also waterfall into more offense. That also happens on offense with the aggressive decks. Of course, it's going to be orange, but they can hit like orange and white, and then they can hit another 2 cards because they hit a white, so they can be like orange or something. If they do hit another white off the white, or if they just hit 2 whites off the first thing, it only triggers once. You're not gonna they're not gonna stack. The multiple flips don't stack. So your deck obviously has to have some number of whites, and that's all on deck building. Depending on what type of deck you want to be, you want to play more whites, etc. But Leap of Faith, as you can see here, actually has a star. So this is a star card. So just like the stars on your Transformers here on Shockwave, this adds to your starting team. And it actually tells you right here, your team and deck can have 25 stars total. So your deck is part of your team is part of your deck. Same thing, everything is all consolidated. So when you do side into a character, if you do end up deciding to side into a character that adds a star, for example, in our case, we have a 24-star team. If I wanted to change my team for game 2 with my sideboard and go into a 25-card team, I would have to take out my Leap of Faith because that would make it a 26 star deck. So very important to remember. But Leap of Faith, of course, all these star cards are very very impactful, and Leap of Faith is no exception. Leap of Faith tells us scrap the top card of our deck, which scrap pretty much means discard. You may play that card. Then scrap another card from the top of your deck, and you may play that card. So it essentially lets you play the top 2 cards of your deck for free. It does bypass all the rules of like action per turn or upgrade per turn. So if you play this action and you hit 2 more actions off the top, you can still play those actions because this card is allowing you to do so. So that's why this card's so powerful. That's why this card has 1 star. So, and obviously we can only play 1 because that's all we have as far as the number of star allotments in our deck. Next card we play is 3 copies of Security Checkpoint. Security Checkpoint is very powerful because not only does it have 2 blue symbols, you see these 2 blue symbols, that never happens in this game. So whenever automatically you have cards with double symbol on them, it's super powerful because that essentially is 1 for 2. That 1 card, when you flip it on offense or defense, is essentially counting as 2 points instead of 1 point. So very, very powerful card Security Checkpoint is. It also lets you get some information. Each player reveals their hand and scraps all upgrades from it. So it gets rid of, essentially you could look at it as 50% of your opponent's deck is going to be upgrades and 50% of it's going to be actions. So you got a 50-50 chance of pretty much hitting their entire hand. Or you know, if they have 5 cards, you'll normally on average hit 2 to 3 cards from it. So pretty powerful card, especially early game. And really does well with the whole discard mechanic, not your opponent not having a hand like this deck normally does. You can play one of these and then you can flip to your side and make your opponent discard another card, and this time they're discarding an action because you got rid of all their upgrades. So next card we play is Reclaim. Reclaim is an action that says put an upgrade from your discard pile, your scrap pile, on top of your deck. And the second part doesn't really matter. If your tower is 3 or higher, draw a card. That's a whole mechanic for a different deck. We don't play any of those cards. But the main part is that this is recursion. This allows you to put any upgrade that you may have discarded or like flipped in battle, and you're like, damn, I wish I drew that card, but you flipped it on defense or something. It lets you put it back to the top of your deck. That way you can manipulate it by major Shockwave, drawing it off the top, you know, or you can, if you put a Decepticon upgrade on top of your deck, then on the back side of Shockwave, that allows you to play a Decepticon card. So that's very important. It's a lot of synergy there, but only 2 copies because we don't need, it's not super essential. It's just nice for those cute little plays. Next is Vaporize. Vaporize is an action that says scrap an enemy upgrade. Now, the upgrades are very powerful because they're kind of like enchantments in Magic, and they're kind of like field spells in Dragon Ball Super. They just stay on there forever. So you really want to get rid of them because obviously they provide incremental advantage, and these are just very powerful cards over time. They may not be as powerful as actions as soon as you slap them down, but they will be very powerful in the long run. They may have dealt 5, 6, 7, 8 damage over the course of 2-3 turns, where actions, you know, you might get hit by that 2 or 3 that one turn, and you're like, okay, cool, that action's gone, it's not there anymore. So upgrades can be very pesky, and especially in a defensive deck, you really want to get rid of them. So we play 2 Vaporize as well as 1 Smelt. Smelt pretty much does the same thing. Vaporize says scrap an enemy upgrade, so you get to choose. Smelt says your opponent chooses one of their upgrades and scraps it. Now, why am I playing Smelt why am I playing Smelt at all? Well, this is the first time we see it, but this little green icon means whenever I flip it on attack or defense, remember, I can trade any card in my hand for that card. So if I had like a really bad card in my hand or something that's not very good in that scenario, or I'm like, oh man, look at that green card, it's really good, I really want to get it, I wish I would have drawn it. Well, I can draw it now. All I have to do is discard 1 card. I discard 1 card and then I add back that green card that I flipped in battle. So very powerful because now I get to see that card much more often than I would something like Vaporize, where I'm just like, I hope I draw it, and if I don't draw it, I'm kind of out of luck. So very good card, and usually you only play the green cards as a one-of because you can see them. Next card we play is Disruptive Entrants, and for those of you who've played, I guess, Magic, yeah, this would be like Duress. Look at your opponent's hand, scrap an action from it. So It's very powerful because, I mean, if your opponent has like 3 or 4 cards, obviously, and you flip your major Shockwave and you make them discard a card, they're not going to discard their best card. They're not going to discard their best action. So being able to have a way of, 1, getting information from your opponent's hand, and 2, just hitting that card that really hurts you in that matchup is great. You know, we only play 2 because sometimes you just draw this when your opponent doesn't have a hand, and it does happen very often. That's why I'm on the fence about this card. But regardless, it's just a very powerful card, a lot of information, and being able to hit a crucial action depending on like what type of deck they are can be game breaking for sure. So obviously another blue card. Now we're heading on to the second part of the actions. These are the secret actions. So these are a little bit different than normal actions. These are not played like normal actions where you just play face up like a normal spell card in Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that. These are played like trap cards in Yu-Gi-Oh, which is pretty cool because obviously I come from Yu-Gi-Oh. Trap cards, awesome. I've always been a trap player, so being able to have that mechanic in this game is super cool to me, and a lot of mind games for sure because it's face down, right? What can it be? So we do play one of these secret actions, which, if you remember from the backside of Shockwave, it allows you to play secret actions. If the top card of your deck is a secret action, you can play it. So, obviously having a larger number of secret actions and Decepticon cards is better for when you're on the backside of your Shockwave. You can play those cards essentially for free. Now, it reads right here, play this card face down. So your secret action for turn, your action for turn can be this secret action. You just play it face down. Now that does take up your action for turn. Remember, it's not like you get one secret action and a regular action. It's just one action. So if you choose this as your action, you can put this face down. You don't have to reveal it to your opponent or anything like that, because at the end of your opponent's turn, this card is going to be put in your scrap pile. So they're going to know that you weren't lying or cheating or whatever the case is. They're going to see that it was indeed a secret action. Now, it only has, these trap cards only last for essentially one turn. So if they don't trigger on your opponent's turn, then they get discarded. And it'll tell you here what triggers them. So the reveal part right here says when it's triggered, when your opponent plays a orange action. So you can see that this is a blue action. So if my opponent were to play a action that has a orange symbol up here, it can have orange and other symbols too. It just needs to have an orange to meet the requirement. Then you can reveal this card, scrap that action, and it has no effect. So super powerful card. It's almost like a counter spell in Magic. It's almost like a Solemn Judgment in Yu-Gi-Oh. It's almost like a counterplay in Dragon Ball Super. And this is the first iteration of counterplays. And there's a lot of different secret actions in this set. I believe Siege 2, I think it's called. Wave 3. So yeah, this is one of the ones that we play because it's just very powerful against the decks that give us a lot of trouble, which are usually those decks that are predominantly orange. Next card we play is another secret action. So these are the two primary secret actions that we play. So we always keep our opponent guessing. There's obviously other secret actions that you could be playing too to give your opponent even more of a mind whirl, but we only play these two. This one's called Battlefield Report. It's a secret action that says when one of your characters defends, you can reveal this card, draw 2 cards, then put a card from your hand on top of your deck. So yeah, draw 2 cards. Anything that says draw 2 cards is usually really good, right? And being able to put any card on top of your deck is actually really cool because this happens before you start flipping for like defense. So the main part of this card is purely a defensive trick. Just like the other one, you play face down. Once your opponent attacks one of your creatures, you go boom, you trigger this, you draw 2, and then you get to put any card on top of your deck. So normally you put something like a white symbol or maybe like a double blue symbol on top of your deck to give you more defense. It gives you more, it's essentially just saving you damage. Otherwise, where you would take it 100%, or maybe there's much more variance at the top of your deck. And remember, with Shockwave's ability, you can always look at the top card of your deck so you can see what's at the top. So if you know that you already have a white at the top, you'll put a double blue. If you don't have a white at the top, you put a white, So there's a lot of different ways that you can manipulate this card in order to make sure that you sustain, your defensive formation. So very, very good card. Speaking about double blues, we have another double blue card here. These are the only 2 double blue cards, I believe, in existence that don't have a star. Handheld Blaster and the security checkpoint that you saw at the beginning of the video. So this one, not as useful as security checkpoint. You almost never play it. This gives your, it's an upgrade. It's one of the first upgrades we're showing here. You can see that the upgrades are all like usually gray, so they look a little bit different than the actions. But this gives your character one more battle card flip. So of course we're a defensive deck, so we don't really care about that. Now maybe post sideboard we can do something like that, but this is purely used as a tool for defense, just so that you can have it in your deck, you can flip it when you need it, you can stack it when you need it, whatever the case is. Next card we play for our upgrades is Scourges Blaster. Now Scourges Blaster is an upgrade. This one's a weapon just like the handheld blaster, but this one we actually play. This one has a blue and a green symbol, so having that green symbol means that we can put it back whenever we magically discard it. This one can only be played on Decepticons, so it can only be played on 2 of 3 of our characters. It can be played on Shockwave or on Flamewar. Now it says when the upgraded character is attacking an Autobot, so it's very specific, that's why we only play one. It has to attack an Autobot, which usually every deck has at least one Autobot on their main team. It has Pierce 2, so 2 of that damage that it's dealing is for sure going to go through. So when you put this on there, they're for sure going to take 2 on an attack, maybe more depending if they can even defend the rest of the attack. Now you can see down here it has a +2 sword. So +2 sword just pretty much means it has +2 attack. So essentially this equipment will give your card +2 attack indefinitely, permanently. So when you're doing math, you're like, okay, I have base 6 attack +2, I have 8 total attack. 8 total attack, 2 of that is 100% going to go through if I'm attacking an Autobot. That's pretty much how this card would be. So we only play one because, like I said, you can get it at any time. Plus our main weapon right here is one that we play 3 of. This can only be played on Shockwave only. That's why we always want to make sure that our Shockwave lives, because we have like 5 or 6 cards in the deck that could only go on Shockwave or could only be played if Shockwave is on board. So you always want to defend him. Now this says put on Shockwave only. Up to 2 of these can fit in your armor, in your weapon slot. So I know I didn't clarify this too much, but every character can have 3 different slots for upgrades. So there's weapon upgrades, there's utility upgrades, and there's armor upgrades. So there's 3 different ones that you can put on a character. So a character can essentially, at max, have 3 different upgrades on it, but they all have to be different. You can't just have like 3 weapons. This allows you to bypass that rule because it allows you to put 2 of these in 1 weapon slot. So essentially 2 + 2 boosts is like 4 attacks. So essentially your weapon slot will be yielding you 4 extra damage, which is huge because now it makes your major shockwave into a huge tank. So this is very powerful because of that. Another powerful point on this is that as soon as you play this card, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and scraps it. So not only do they lose a card, but they also are getting a bunch of pressure on them because now your Shockwave has more attack than it normally did. And you can discard up to 2 or 3 cards a turn by flipping, playing this, and playing UFO. So pretty powerful. Next card you play in the weapon slot is Laser Cutlass. Now, this card cannot be played on Major Shockwave. This card says put on characters that have 7 stars or fewer. So on the opposite side, this card's not, you know, like you don't need Shockwave for this guy to live. You need your supporting cast to live, which can be risky because a lot of decks usually will go after the supporting cast first because they're easier to take out. They're less tanky. They don't have as much defense than your boss monster. But the reason that this is here is so that our supporting cast actually pushes their own weight. They're able to actually push through damage against those other blue defensive decks, or even against the aggressive decks. You want to make sure that they're, you know, they have some extra weapons. So this one gives you Pierce 3 and it gives you +1 attack. So our supporting cast all has 3 attack. So this will give it +1, so it'll give it 4 attack. But then 3 out of that 4 attack will 100% go through no matter what, which is really, really cool. And it just solidifies you damage to your supporting cast, which otherwise would be useless with defense on the other side. Now we do play one card, I believe, in the whole deck that has not a blue symbol, and it's Enforcement Batons. This one has an orange symbol. So if I were to flip this while attacking, only while attacking, I would add 1 attack to my attack total. So there are times that, you know, you can use that card that I showed at the beginning, Reclaim, to put back an upgrade on top of your deck. So you can put this on top of your deck and then attack, and then, you know, flip those 2 cards. Obviously, you're going to flip that 1 card that you put on top of your deck and get yourself that extra attack boost. So it has like cute little tricks like that, and then you can get it back to your hand because it's it's a green symbol. So this one's good because it's used for utility. It just gets rid of an enemy weapon. So along with the 2 Vaporize, the Smelt, and the Enforcement Baton, you have a bunch of removal, and you have a bunch of ways of getting rid of these powerful weapons that may be putting a lot of pressure on you. So Enforcement Baton, for sure needed, just 1 copy. And then next we're going to go on to the... That's it for the weapons? Yeah, that's it for the weapons. So now we go on to the armors, and the only armor we play is extra padding. Now there's a bunch of other good armors that that there's access to. There's like cards that we play in the sideboard that really help you too. But this is the only one that we play in the main deck because this is the one that we want to put on our main Shockwave. Also, we can go on all our other characters if we want to as well. Now, this one has that exception as well, which I believe debuted in Wave 3, where you can like bypass the number of slots, the number of items per slot, which we saw with the weapon, where you can play like 2 weapons in 1 armor slot. This one lets you play 3 extra paddings, 3 of this armor on 1 armor slot. So the main goal is to have 3 of these on your Shockwave. Now, you can also just have 1 on each one of your characters, or you can have 2 on 1 character and 1 on the other. It doesn't really matter, but because this is the only armor that we play, you have that option. Now, this pretty much just gives our character tough 1. So it's kind of like how our Flame War gives everything tough 1. This will give the card that it's on tough 1. So ideally, you have 3 extra paddings on your main Shockwave, plus you have Flame War alive, and you have a total of tough 4, plus your 2 flips. That's 6 cards that you're flipping per turn, and if you flip a white, that's 8. So best case scenario, you can have like up to 11 defense, and your opponent literally has to attack with like 18 for you to even get like some type of significant damage. But this really just helps you wall up and gives you a lot of defense. And it's a green too, also, by the way. Oh, and when this is the most important part, when you play this on a character, you may play another extra padding. So if you have all 3 in your hand, you can just slap them all down at the same time. You know how it's only 1 upgrade per turn? This one lets you play all 3 of them at the same time. So pretty powerful card. Then our final card in the deck, round out our 40 card deck, I believe, is Field Communicator. This is a white, so this is one of those few cards that you play in the deck just to make sure that you have access to whites in order to extra flip. It is an upgrade, which is great because this is an option for Reclaim. You want to put Reclaim, put this on the top, and then you for sure get 2 more flips. That's a really cool play. Or this just being an upgrade in general is great. It does give you +1 attack as well, but the only downgrade to this is that you can only put it on a specialist. But in our team, we have all specialists. So very cool. How do you know where the specialist is? We have the specialist icon right there, which is on our other characters as well. It does allow you to, once you play it, you get to scrap the top card of your deck, and you may play that card. Now, it's just like Leap of Faith. It gets around the rules of like, oh, I already played an upgrade. So if I play Field Communicator, I can hit extra padding off the top and play the extra padding, It just bypasses that whole, rule of 1 action or 1 upgrade, which is why a lot of these cards that say like scrap the card and then play it, once this tells you to play it, it just tells you to just bypass the rules essentially. So very good card. But what doesn't let you bypass the rules is this right here. You may play it as if though it was in your hand. So just like any other action or upgrade, if it's in your hand, like you're limited to that 1 action that one, whatever it is. But when you have something like Field Communicator, that gets around those rules. So that makes it such a more powerful card. So that's pretty much it. That's a 40 card deck. Not going to go over the sideboard because, this format is pretty much done. This deck profile is a little bit late. A lot of people were going to use it this weekend at their preliminaries. We actually got a couple guys qualified for the 20K, so we're going to be going there squatted with our PPG Transformers team. So we're really excited for that, and this was kind of like an introductory for those of you who were looking at the game, interested. I was at Gen Con, I was playing Transformers. I know a lot of people were just like, how was that game? So I figured just doing a deck profile with a little bit more explanation than normal, since there's not too much content out there, would probably help a lot of those who really were interested in maybe playing the game. If there's a lot of interest here, we can maybe go through a how to play. There's a lot of great videos already out there on how to play. Like I said, this game has been out for a year already, so there is a lot of tools out there. There's not too many, but there is, how to play Transformers. There's definitely a lot of good videos out there to learn, to teach you how to play. But let us know if you guys like it, if you guys are a fan of this game, if you guys aren't a fan of this game, if you guys are a fan of this content. Please let us know down in the comments below. That way we can get your feedback and use it going forward. For those of you who want to start playing, definitely we'll see you at the PAX Invitational in December. And we'll try to upload more content on the channel as well. We have another top 16 deck profile. I made top 32 at at Gen Con, and one of our teammates made top 16. So we're going to do one of those and then see how you guys like it, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you guys again so much for your love and support. And please also, if you want to check out more Transformers content, please head on over to Vector Sigma, vectorsigma.info. They have a lot of information on there. They have their own Patreon. If you want to take this competitively, you really want to, get into this, they have a lot of that information. They're known as the #1 Transformers source for any type of information. So definitely check them out if you want to continue on this path of, Transformers, or you want a lot more consistent content, because that's all they're about. So thank you guys again for watching. Until next time.